Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to be out here with us today. My name is Greg Slater. I'm the Secretary of the Maryland Department of Transportation. We're really fortunate to be so close to the nation's capital with all this infrastructure investment and opportunity that's out there today. Earlier this month, we hosted President Biden at the Port of Baltimore to celebrate the infrastructure bill. He even called the port America's port, or the best port in the nation. That's right. That's a pretty cool experience for a 25-year public servant like myself. In July, we hosted Secretary Buttigieg over at the port as well to talk about the supply chain and some of the great things that we have happening. But today is about a different part of our transportation system. We're delighted to be back together with Secretary Buttigieg today, Mayor Scott, Congressman Van Hollen. I'm going to miss all of our elected officials, so the mayor is going to help me. I see our Senate President, our Speaker of the House over there. Great to be with us today. But we're going to really talk today about transit and a meaningful partnership. Let's talk for a minute about what this new $50 million federal, state, and city partnership will bring to this region, who it serves, and most importantly, what it is. So what is this going to bring to our system? This is a partnership that's going to bring us investment on a 20-mile corridor following the CityLink Blue and Orange routes, traveling from Fox Ridge in eastern Baltimore County through downtown to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid in western Baltimore County. This project is going to deliver 10 miles of dedicated bus lanes, bus stop enhancements in more than 100 different locations, including benches and shelters and real-time signage, ADA upgrades, 3 miles of transit signal priority, 1.5 miles of bike upgrades, 25 electric vehicle charging stations, and direct connections to MARC, light rail, and Metro. So who do these investments serve? These investments that we make, that we deliver, are really about the communities that they serve, the communities that they go through. Within a half a mile of this corridor, there are 189,000 jobs, 5 colleges and universities, 41 schools, 7 hospitals, 9 dialysis centers, 36 rehab and substance abuse facilities, 10 rec centers, and 9 supermarkets. It's about mobility. Employment centers like Medicare and Medicaid services, Social Security Administration, Johns Hopkins Bayview and Maine campus, and the University of Maryland Medical Center. Within a half mile of the corridor, there are 86,000 households. 27% of those households do not have access to a personal vehicle, and 20% of those households are living in poverty. This corridor contains half of all the census blocks in Baltimore that were defined as areas with extreme need in Baltimore City's equity analysis. So I've talked about what it's going to bring in the communities that this investment will serve. But this investment is an investment in these communities and all the mothers and fathers and sons and daughters and friends and neighbors that call these communities home. This is a $50 million investment in this corridor. It's a partnership where USDOT, the state of Maryland, and Baltimore City came together to invest in access to jobs, invest in better mobility, and invest in opportunity. It's a community investment and a partnership. So with that, I'm going to pause and I'm going to turn the program over to our newly appointed Transit Administrator, Holly Arnold, who is just getting started with all the great things that she's going to do.
Good morning. Thank you, Secretary Slater, Secretary Buttigieg, Mayor Scott, Senator Van Hollen, and everyone here who belongs in the power of partnership to get things done. Thank you for joining us today to celebrate the development of 20 miles of new infrastructure that has the capacity to put new possibilities within reach of citizens in our region who need it the most. $50 million. That's a big investment in transit and transportation, which we know is the lifeblood of getting people to jobs and opportunities they wouldn't otherwise have. And it wouldn't have happened without this partnership between the federal, state, and local governments looking out for people who need our help the most. To everyone who had a part in making that investment come true, thank you. We are so grateful to be your partners in progress. As I've often said, I'm not just the administrator of MDOT MTA, I'm also a transit rider. As a rider, I know firsthand the positive impact that this type of investment will have, especially for improving our riders' overall transit experience along the east-west corridor and the entire MTA network. MTA's commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion in everything we do and every project we undertake depends on the support of partners who have their hearts in the right place. Thanks to this funding from partners who care, getting to work and making a living to feed your family will become much easier and take a lot less time to get there for tens of thousands of people along the route. Bus stops at over 100 locations will become more welcoming, with new shelters and safety improvements, offering a visible reminder that transit riders deserve protection from the elements, just like people who drive cars. Over 10 miles of dedicated bus lanes will announce to the world, by their very presence, that transit deserves a more equitable share of the road, and that transit riders no longer have to be stuck in the traffic that's caused by too many cars on the road. ADA improvements, bicycle lanes, real-time arrival signage, and lots more. All of it adds up to a better transit experience, better on-time performance, and a faster ride for people who depend on transit. At M.MTA, we are honored to be partners with the federal government, with the city, and to be part of the solution that puts opportunity within easier reach for the people we serve. And a huge thank you to our riders, the community organizations, and members of the public who worked with us to bring this much needed investment to the region. Thank you all for helping us to make these opportunities come to life. And now I'm going to turn it over to Baltimore's Mayor, Brandon Scott.
Thank you, and congratulations again, ma'am. As the Secretary said, I will recognize all of our elected officials that have joined us here today. I'll start, of course, with our wonderful Senator Chris Van Hollen, our Senate President Bill Ferguson, our Speaker Adrian Jones, Delegate Learman, Delegate Clippinger, Delegate Robin Lewis, and Councilman Eric Costello. And now I think, and Senator Corey McCray. I think my senator was here. He was here, yeah, earlier. Good morning, and I am honored to welcome my friend Secretary Buttigieg back to the beautiful city of Baltimore. I have a strong affinity for the Secretary because he understands the unique leadership challenges of being the mayor. As we call him amongst the younger elected officials, we call him Mayor Secretary Pete. That's what we call him. It's by far the toughest job of a public servant that you can have. The Secretary knows firsthand that America is made of cities, and cities are made of families and good, hard-working people. Building a stronger, more unified nation starts at home by building a stronger, more unified Baltimore. And we are on the right path. Thanks to the East-West Priority Corridor Project and the great partnership that's being presented today. With the investment from local, state, and federal transportation authorities, this project will further efforts to improve safety, accessibility, and facilitate faster and more reliable transit for Baltimore's residents. Quite frankly, it's a game changer. I was talking with some of our bus operators earlier today about how I remember getting up at 5:30 to go from west to east to get to high school on time at 8 o'clock in the morning. And how I remember how it was faster for me to catch the bus downtown and catch the subway uptown on the way home because of how bad the east-west transit was here in Baltimore. Whether you're a student taking public transit to school, or a seasoned resident hoping to make a doctor's appointment, or simply trying to get to work on time, this project will greatly improve connectivity and access to essential jobs, services, and healthcare with the addition of dedicated bus lanes that will improve on-time performance. This effort will also enhance pedestrian and bike safety, including crosswalk, curb extensions, ADA curb ramps, signal upgrades at select intersections. This is the equitable approach I bring to governing and the perspective that the Secretary brings every day to the Federal Department of Transportation. I want to thank the Maryland Department of Transit Administration, MTA, and Baltimore City DOT, all of you for your leadership in making this happen, and to each and every one of you for staying the course even when it looked like this might not happen. The three of you have made sure that this remained a priority for our city and our state. And I also want to thank the U.S. Department of Transportation and Secretary Buttigieg for your presence here today and your ongoing leadership, Mr. Secretary. Trust and believe you have a partner in the Mayor of Baltimore, and we will put these dollars to work to make sure that we can feel it, not just here in Baltimore, but across the country. I am now honored to pass the mic to my friend, one half of the dynamic Senate duo from the state of Maryland, Senator Chris Van Hollen.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you, Mayor Scott, and thank you for your leadership, your partnership, and your friendship, and to other elected and community leaders who are here, including the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. To Secretary Slater and Administrator Arnold, thank you, as well as the Baltimore City team working with the mayor. And especially a big, warm Maryland welcome to Secretary Pete, to Secretary Buttigieg. Welcome back to Baltimore. It's great to have you bringing this good news with you. The last time Secretary Buttigieg was here, we stood together at the Port of Baltimore talking about the importance of passing the Infrastructure Modernization Bill. That was back in July. Since then, and just a few weeks ago, President Biden visited the Port of Baltimore to talk about the importance of infrastructure modernization. And 8 days ago, with President Biden and Secretary Buttigieg and others, we saw the president sign into law the historic Infrastructure Modernization Bill. Congratulations to the entire team that helped get that over the finish line. To use a G-rated version of President Biden saying it was a big darn deal. And we're seeing the benefits already right here today. That measure will, over the next coming years, pump over $4.6 billion into modernizing Maryland's highways and bridges. It will provide more funds to upgrade and expand our transit systems. It will help build pipes so that we have safe drinking water. And it will help modernize the infrastructure of the 21st century, including building out high-speed internet and our clean energy grid, including the charging stations that you heard about as part of this project. It also includes a $1 billion fund to remove federally funded infrastructure from the past that divided communities, like the bridge to nowhere in West Baltimore. And Mr. Secretary, I know the mayor and I look forward to working with you on that important project. This is an important project for this part of the city and, of course, across the city, since it's the East-West Priority Corridor. And this is being funded by the Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity grant. You heard from others the important equity and inclusion provisions behind this project. And I was pleased to join with my colleague and partner, Senator Cardin, as well as other members of the delegation, Congressman Ruppersberger, Sarbanes, and Mfume, to push for this investment. And thank you, Mr. Secretary, for listening, for hearing, because, as was said, this is a corridor where so many people rely on transit. And we need to make sure that people who rely on transit receive the very best treatment and the very best service that we can provide in this city and in the state. 17,000 households within 1/4 mile of this corridor don't have cars. So they rely on transit to get to work, to get groceries, to visit the doctor, for everything that impacts their life. And what this project will do, and you heard the details, but the bottom line is it will improve the quality of life for individuals and families in this area. It means that they will get where they need to go more quickly and more comfortably, and it will take off that important time what they will be able to then spend with their family and friends and doing the other things that are so important in our lives. So it is all about increasing the standard of living. And it will be done with input from members of the community to make sure that we do this in a way that addresses people's needs. This is just the start. The Infrastructure Modernization Bill includes an increase in this raise grant funds of $14.5 billion. So, Mr. Secretary, we look forward to working with you as you continue to make these very important investments. But I want to close with this. In Washington, D.C., the running joke for years was that this was Infrastructure Week, meaning everyone understood that we needed to invest in and modernize our national infrastructure, but it never got done. It never got done until President Biden was sworn in as president. It never got done until Secretary Buttigieg assumed responsibilities at the U.S. Department of Transportation. They, working with Congress, got it done, and now when we say this week is Infrastructure Week, we mean every week really is Infrastructure Modernization Week, like this week, like this day. And I'm so pleased to welcome Secretary Pete, Mayor Secretary Pete, back to Baltimore and thank him for his leadership when it comes to modernizing our infrastructures, or modernize our nation's infrastructure in Maryland and right here in Baltimore. Secretary Buttigieg.
Thanks very much, Senator, for your leadership, for your steadfast support of good transportation policy, and for, with your Senate colleagues, helping to deliver this bipartisan infrastructure law that the President signed on Monday. And we're thankful as well to Senator Cardin, to so many members of your House delegation, and to the local and state elected leaders who are here as well. Mayor Scott, great to be with you again. It's a little chillier, as you said, than I saw you last time. The job of mayor, I continue to agree, is the most important and difficult and demanding in government. It's only gotten more so since I left my time as mayor, although I will say it would have been nice when I was mayor to have this big of an infrastructure fund coming my way. So we're hoping your job just got a little bit easier thanks to this landmark law. So glad to be with Secretary Slater, to be with the Director of Maryland Transit Authority here, and so many others who made these victories possible and who are actually going to be on the front lines of getting results now that we've got the funding that we've been working on for so long. I wish everybody here could have been there on the South Lawn of the White House on Monday when the President signed that law, because you saw something that a lot of people thought was impossible today, especially in today's Washington, to see a number of Republicans joining Democrats and a president to make something historic happen, something that is positive and concrete for the entire country. And of course, the week that began with that ended on Friday with the passage in the House of the Build Back Better Act, which we are excited to see go to the Senate and help lower costs for American families on everything from insulin to child care. These two centerpieces of the president's agenda are going to make a tremendous difference in everyday life. And everyday life, I believe, ought to be the foundation of all politics and policy. And that's why this project we're celebrating here matters so much. The mayor described his experience as a student with a 2+ hour commute just to get across his own community to where he needed to be. For it to take longer for someone who lives here in Baltimore to get to work or school than it takes to get here from Capitol Hill if you do have a car shows you what needs to change, and it's part of what is going to change thanks to this very important project. I got to tell you, this was a very competitive process. There were about $10 billion of requests for $1 billion dollars of funding in this program. So only the most compelling projects were able to make the cut and get funded. And this was one of them for so many reasons. Connecting people to opportunity, connecting people to jobs, connecting people to service, connecting people to each other, connecting people to education. And yes, connecting people who had been sometimes disconnected in the past. And it is important to take note of the history here. In the 60s and 70s, urban planners wanted to run a highway right through downtown Baltimore, removing countless homes, businesses, churches. And the people of Baltimore got together and assembled what they called a movement against destruction, which successfully compelled planners to take a different course. But it was too late to do something about that highway to nowhere, that first phase, which is less than a mile and a half long, and yet just putting in that small stretch of highway destroyed nearly 1,000 homes and displaced about 1,500 residents, mostly black residents in West Baltimore. The point of transportation is to connect people, not to disconnect people. And now we have an opportunity to do something about that, in no small part thanks to the leadership of Senate leaders like Senators Van Hollen and Cardin, who've spoken about this issue, and thanks to the very real dollars that we have to apply toward making sure people are connected and not disconnected. The East-West Priority Corridor is an ambitious vision to connect the city, to create jobs, and to help more people in Baltimore access opportunity. So that's why we're proud to support this with $22 million in funding from the RAISE program that'll create 10 miles of dedicated bus lanes, improve accessibility for people with disabilities, and enhance safety for everybody who walks and who bikes. This is a great example of how we can support economic growth. There are, by our estimate, about 180,000 jobs along this corridor. Connections to the Social Security Administration, as was mentioned, the Downtown Business District, Johns Hopkins, Bayview Hospital. And this means shorter commutes, less congestion, fewer carbon emissions, as well as more jobs, including for communities that depend on public transit the most, which are disproportionately likely to be communities of color. More crosswalks and curb ramps and bike lanes mean that it'll be easier and safer to get around. And faster citywide connections also support vital economic engines like that Port of Baltimore that the President visited, that I had a chance to visit earlier this year, which is, of course, so important for supporting our supply chains as they recover from this pandemic. It's even helping to repurpose that infamous highway to nowhere by adding new bike lanes and bike facilities. So this is one of 90 projects across 47 states, DC and Guam, that are going to make a difference on everything from freight connectors in South Dakota to what we're celebrating right here in Baltimore. And thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, we're going to have a whole lot more where this came from. And I can tell you that my department, just like the local leaders who are here and the state leaders who are here, feel the responsibility and the pressure to make very good use of those very large sums of taxpayer dollars, because it's not about the numbers on a page. It is about the difference that it makes in everyday life, and we are proud to support that work right here in Baltimore. So thank you again to everybody who got us to this point, and happy to take a few questions that I think Carrie will quarterback over there.
What does this grant perhaps most address from talking with city DOT folks that have been the biggest challenges that you faced at city DOT space?
I think, Paul, the key here is that this is not just about Baltimore City DOT. This is about partnership with MTA and MDOT, right? And we know the biggest issue that we have when you're trying to travel, people travel by bus. You heard it. 17,000 people like that live in this area on this corridor. It's about getting people to where they need to go faster and more efficiently. It's about doing that in a way that understands that we don't have to live in a city anymore where we're only worried about those who drive, because so many people that work in the businesses that provide the goods and services that you and I depend on, that work in our hospitals, that work in our other medical facilities, they catch the bus, and they should be able to get to work in a quick and efficient way too.
Absolutely. Look, we've been facing the consequences of underinvestment in transit for years, even for decades, even though we have learned through experience that transit benefits everybody. And now we have an appreciation that wasn't there when subways were first built, for example, about the climate benefits that add even more of a compelling rationale to make the kinds of investments we're making. It's first of all vitally important that that you not have to own a car. Or that if you do own a car, you don't have to drive it absolutely everywhere to get to where you need to be. But also, if you are driving a car, you're still better off if there's more transit because there's less congestion on the roads. So there's so many reasons why this makes sense and why we're proud to have the biggest investment we've ever made in public transit at a federal level as part of this package. And we're seeing right here the difference that it makes in everyday life for people in Baltimore trying to get to where they need to be. That's fine. Anytime they call me a mayor, I take it as a compliment because mayors are on the front lines here.
But in terms of what Senator Van Hollen said about transportation projects that get promised and never get done,
Yeah.
does this competitive grant, does it come with strings attached in the form of benchmarks, performance benchmarks?
Yeah, there are a lot of measures about both accountability and timing to make sure that the project is delivered well. And I see heads nodding that our project partners and project sponsors are very conscious of that. It's not like the 2009 stimulus where we're trying to just instantly pump as much economic juice into the economy as possible. It's more about a long-term vision, but still, we want to make sure that people see those results. We have a high degree of confidence and trust in our state and local partners, but we also have that responsibility to be watching and carefully making sure that those taxpayer dollars are well spent.
And last question, we're going to go to Hillary with EP.
I'll take it. Yeah, we're very excited to begin work on the EV charging network that the President envisions, 500,000 chargers across the country, to make sure that in big, wide open spaces out west that you know that you can get a charge where you need one on a long trip, and in urban areas that are underserved, where people don't live in detached houses where you can just plug the car into your wall of your garage, that they have equitable access to. In fact, if you think about it, the two kinds of drivers who stand to benefit the most from electric vehicles are rural drivers who drive those long distances and burn a lot of gas, and lower income drivers in urban areas who would benefit the most from those fuel savings. But there's really two things we need to do in order to connect them to that opportunity. Part of it's the charging station. So we're working, as I speak, with Secretary Granholm and her team to quickly connect up the Department of Energy and the DOT on the tactical plan for moving forward. And then what's in the second part, the Build Back Better legislation, which is to give Americans thousands of dollars in discounts, in effect, through tax incentives, so that it's easier to afford in the first place. And the more that happens, the more that also stimulates an American-made EV industry, which makes the overall cost of those vehicles get lower, we think, each passing year.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.